Imagine a lion vying for supremacy within the animal kingdom. During his campaign, he makes an audacious promise to the sheep, vowing that once he rises to power, he will adopt a vegetarian lifestyle. Enchanted by his eloquent rhetoric about unity and progressive change, the sheep cast their votes in his favor. However, just 3 months post-election, half the sheep have mysteriously vanished. This scenario is not merely a fable, it is a reflection of a recurring theme in human history, a pattern that has precipitated the fall of empires, dismantled democracies, and transformed revolutions into tyrannies. Time and again, we find ourselves bestowing power upon those who wear the guise of benevolence but harbor ulterior motives. In some cases, these wolves in sheep's clothing genuinely perceive themselves as innocuous, and it is precisely at this moment that the threat escalates into catastrophe. Power does not just lay bare one's character, it can mold it in profound ways. When power lands in the hands of the unworthy, it can forge them into monsters. We often assume that power corrupts only the malevolent, that unscrupulous individuals seek authority solely to inflict harm. However, the controversial thinker Niccolo Machiavelli, who meticulously dissected the nature of power over 5 centuries ago, identified a more insidious truth. Power corrupts those who are ill-prepared for it. It devastates individuals who fail to comprehend its implications, who mistakenly believe that noble intentions can shield them from its darker influences. Machiavelli famously asserted, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." This observation stemmed not from cynicism, but from lived experience. From his observations in Florence to the halls of the Roman Senate, and across various forms of governance from monarchies to modern democracies, he discerned a recurring truth. Societies do not crumble solely due to the existence of power itself, but rather because they grant it to individuals who lack the capacity to wield it responsibly. We often conflate charisma with competence, enthusiasm with wisdom, and eloquence with understanding. This is why Machiavelli's cautionary insights remain timeless. Here are 5 archetypes of individuals who should never be entrusted with power, not necessarily because they are doomed to fail, but because they tend to dismantle everything they encounter often, believing they are acting in the service of the greater good. 1. Asterisk, the morally righteous tyrant. Asterisk, a man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything, must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good. We have been conditioned to idealize virtuous leaders. However, the most perilous tyrants are not those who overtly embody evil. They are often those who believe they are engaged in the noble endeavor of saving the world. Take Maximilien Robespierre, a lawyer and revolutionary who began his political journey by denouncing tyranny and opposing capital punishment. He envisioned a republic of virtue, yet his fervent obsession with moral purity ultimately transformed him into the architect of the Reign of Terror in France. During this dark chapter, shopkeepers faced execution for hoarding resources. Allies were beheaded for insufficient enthusiasm, and children denounced their own parents, all executed in the name of a misguided moral righteousness. Robespierre's so-called virtue became a potent weapon against the very society he aimed to uplift. This archetype persists today within governments, corporations, and social movements that claim moral superiority while enforcing ideological conformity. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as moral licensing. Once individuals become convinced of their own righteousness, they can rationalize any form of cruelty. Compassion is perceived as weakness, and dissent is labeled a betrayal. Machiavelli understood this dangerous dynamic. He observed that reformers who sought to govern entirely through moral absolutism inevitably fell from grace. When morality becomes inflexible, compassion and wisdom wither, often replaced by draconian ideology enforced through coercion, or, in our present day, by bureaucratic means and social ostracism. The morally righteous tyrant is profoundly unsettling because he acts with a clear conscience, believing his ruthlessness serves a higher purpose. 2. Asterisk, the weak pleaser. Asterisk, it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Often misinterpreted as a call for cruelty. This statement from Machiavelli was intended as a warning. Weakness masquerading as kindness can dismantle entire nations. Contemporary culture often venerates empathy and consensus, Yet in positions of power, indecisiveness can be disastrous. King Louis XVI of France epitomized this tragic archetype. Despite being intelligent, well-intentioned, and eager to initiate reform, he was paralyzed by a fear of conflict. In his quest to placate everyone, including nobles, reformers, and revolutionists, he ultimately satisfied no one. His indecisiveness did not thwart violence. It's guaranteed it. By shunning the confrontation of difficult truths, Louis sealed his own demise, plunging France into chaos. This pattern continues to unfold in modern contexts. Chief executives who shy away from disrupting failing business models, politicians frozen in inaction by public opinion, and leaders who await approval before taking decisive action. In attempting to appease all, they create chaos. They protect no one, alienate everyone, and ultimately erase their authority. Psychologically, this attunes to a dependency on external validation, an inability to take action without seeking reassurance. As Machiavelli cautioned, mercy devoid of discipline leads to disorder. The weak pleaser alienates everyone in an effort to avoid offending anyone. 3. The narcissistic dreamer. Men in general judge more by the eyes than by the hands. Charisma often captivates us, drawing us to grandeur rather than substance. This dynamic is how the narcissistic dreamer ascends to power. He is more enamored with admiration than with tangible achievements, seeking applause over genuine results. Emperor Nero epitomized this archetype. Convinced that he was an artist before a ruler, Nero compelled citizens to attend his endless performances while he constructed lavish palaces for his own glory. He sang while Rome burned. Nero's obsession with maintaining a gleaming image rendered him blind to the realities of governance. Revolts blossomed, allies abandoned him, and when the Senate ultimately condemned him, his lament was not for the crumbling empire, but for the artist who was dying alongside him. Today, we see shades of Nero in leaders who promise revolutionary change while their institutions crumble around them.
Ow.
In tech visionaries who construct empires built on hype over foundations. And in influencers who preach authenticity while merely selling illusions. Their grand visions often become instruments of self-aggrandizement. Machiavelli observed many such figures, dazzling orators whose brilliance often leads to disaster. Their charisma may shine brightly for a time, but it will inevitably be extinguished by the harsh light of reality. By the time their followers realize that the grand vision was little more than a theatrical performance, the well has run dry, and the consequences may be irreversible. The narcissistic dreamer does not lead. He indulges in the performance of leadership. 4. The resentful intellectual. Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. Machiavelli recognized the psychology of resentment. Our emotional landscape is often structured more by feelings of humiliation than by aspirations of hope. The resentful intellectual channels bitterness into ideologies. Highly intelligent yet scorned, these individuals often seek revenge disguised as a quest for justice. Vladimir Lenin's trajectory fits this archetype perfectly. An educated and brilliant mind, his worldview hardened following the execution of his brother and his subsequent exile. His intellect became a tool of vengeance against a system that had humiliated him. This path ultimately gave rise to the oppressive regimes of Soviet terror, a dangerous fusion of ideology and authoritarianism. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche described this phenomenon as resentment, the moralizing of envy and hatred. Such leaders do not merely aspire for equality, they harbor a desire for revenge against those who once spurned them. They construct systems designed not to elevate the downtrodden, but to punish those who wronged them. This archetype thrives within modern intellectual and political circles. Highly educated, articulate, and deeply wounded, they craft moral frameworks that cloak personal vendettas in the guise of noble causes. Their cruelty is reframed as justice delayed, while their purges are rationalized as corrections of history. Machiavelli expressed his deep unease toward these figures. When intelligence is entwined with bitterness, tyranny can become terrifyingly rational. They establish coherent systems of oppression that endure long after their tenure, defended by rhetoric that purports to be virtuous but ultimately conceals vengeance. Because no act of revenge can genuinely heal the wounds of humiliation, the conflicts they instigate become ceaseless. 5. The coward strategist. Fortune is the arbiter of half our actions, but she still leaves us to control the other half. Machiavelli contended that fortune favors the bold, not reckless individuals, but those who act decisively when the time is right. The coward strategist confuses indecision with prudence and deliberation with progress. Their veneer of wisdom often masks inaction that proves disastrous over time. A stark illustration of this failure can be found in the League of Nations during the 1930s. Faced with growing aggressions from Japan and Italy, it opted for committees and caution instead of taking a stand. By the time action was finally taken, fascism had grown far too powerful. Their restraint did not prevent World War II. It made it almost inevitable. This kind of paralysis plagued Nokia's leadership as the iPhone burst onto the scene. The Federal Reserve before the 2008 financial crisis, and global institutions in the face of the pandemic. In each case, a delay cloaked in deliberation led to chaos. The coward strategist possesses a multitude of arguments justifying why immediate action is premature. The data is incomplete. The political climate is tumultuous. The risks are too daunting. Yet at the heart of this inaction lies a fear of failure, of blame, of acting without the cloak of certainty. However, in the realm of power, certainty must be created through decisive action rather than awaited like permission. Machiavelli compared fortune to a river. To navigate it successfully, one must be prepared for the unpredictable when calm weather prevails. The coward strategist waits for the perfect moment, but by the time it arrives, the floodwaters have already overwhelmed the banks. ### The eternal lesson Machiavelli never sought to glorify cruelty. His true scandal lay in his commitment to honesty, revealing how power operates in reality as opposed to how we wish it to. Power does not inherently belong to the righteous or the wicked. It belongs to those who comprehend its dynamics and complexities. Yet the cycle of history continues to repeat itself because we repeatedly empower the same 5 archetypes: the morally righteous tyrant, whose virtue guides their brutality; the weak pleaser, whose desire to be liked breeds chaos; the narcissistic dreamer, who erects monuments to self; the resentful intellectual, who cloaks revenge in ideology; the coward strategist, who confuses hesitation with wisdom. Each archetype causes destruction in a unique manner, through cruelty, passivity, vanity, vengeance, or fear. Collectively, they erode the public's faith in leadership, and when this faith falters, cynicism often supplants civic engagement. So, who should be entrusted with power? Machiavelli hinted at the answer. The pragmatic steward, a rare, disciplined, and self-aware individual. This kind of leader wields authority with precision, much like a surgeon's scalpel, rather than as a weapon of conquest. The pragmatic steward harmonizes virtue with realism, courage with humility, and authority with restraint. They recognize that sometimes a lesser evil may prevent a greater catastrophe. Their actions are aimed at fostering long-term stability rather than seeking immediate applause. They prioritize institutional integrity over personal accolades. A historical example of this wisdom is George Washington. After leading a successful revolution, he relinquished power not once, but twice, demonstrating that true strength lies in the ability to recognize when to step away from authority. The pragmatic steward rarely garners glamour or attention. They do not promise a utopia, they promise resilience. They possess the humility to understand power's corrupting potential and impose boundaries on their own authority, serving as civilization's bulwark against collapse. Ultimately, power is neither inherently good nor wicked. It acts as a revealing force. In the hands of the morally righteous tyrant, it purifies through violence. In the hands of the pleaser, it dissipates. In the dreamer's possession, it corrupts. In the grasp of the resentful, it enslaves. In the clutches of the coward, it crumbles. Yet when entrusted to the pragmatic steward, power endures. The pressing question every generation must grapple with is this: will we recognize these 5 archetypes before granting them power? Or will we find ourselves repeating historical patterns, caught off guard when Machiavelli's prophecies unfold once more? The future hinges on our ability to choose the diligent builder over the flamboyant performer, to prioritize competence over charisma, and to balance caution with courage. Machiavelli has handed us the key to understanding power's true nature. Whether or not we choose to heed his insights is entirely up to us. You don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to support our efforts and stay updated on our latest content. If you enjoyed this piece, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and share this with others to help grow our historical community.